Hello, I am Umbrenero and welcome to Umbrenero's Life. Today's video is my September 2023 Plan With Me. So before I get into this video, I want to apologize for not posting as much as I would have liked. I had a period of being overwhelmed and very bad mentally. I took some time to get in a better mental space, and now I am hoping to do better with posting. So, on to today's video. So, the very first thing I did for the monthly calendar was draw all the lines I was going to need for my calendar and 2 larger boxes for my key. This month, I decided to do a galaxy-style color theme. For the most part, it was a very simple style for all the pages. It just took a good amount of time. Once all the lines were done, I did a quick erasing of all the pencil lines that were still visible. Next, I went in and put tape in the center of the pages. I used a black washi tape for the majority of it, but at the top and bottom of the page, I used a shimmery iridescent washi tape for a little pop. Next was the hardest part of this section, and all the rest of the sections. I had to cover all the areas that were not going to be colored with some sticky notes, and I started the coloring process for borders. I used distressed ink in 3 different colors to give that galaxy-like look. I stuck in the pre-made month header that I had created earlier using some black dotted paper and some metallic markers I have. I made sure that it was securely attached to the page before I moved on. The last 2 items that needed to be completed were labeling the calendar and making the key. The labeling was very straightforward. I used a dot marker to put a little color in each part of the calendar, and then I went and put the numbers. It was the same for the key, as I had already decided what each of the colors would represent. It was just simply filling in what all the colors were and having an example of what the color was. The second thing I did this month was my monthly log. Like I did on the previous spread, I started with drawing all of the lines around the area where my monthly log would be. A difference this time was I decided not to erase any pencil lines that remained. Like the previous section, I did the washi tape along the center of the page. It was black and it went most of the way. But up at the top, I added some more of that shimmery iridescent tape. Next was adding the border. Again, I covered the area I didn't want colored with sticky notes, and yes, I reused them as much as I could. I used my 3 Distress ink colors that I used on my monthly calendar to continue the border pattern here as well. Last was adding the header at the top of the page. I made it in a similar way as the September header I had on the previous spread. I used a black paper that I had laying around. The third spread I worked on was my content calendar. I didn't really have a full plan of what I wanted to do with it when I was recording. So, I made it look like a mirror image of my monthly log. That means I did the same thing all over again. Next was my goals and things spread. This month, I renamed my brainstorm section to a things section, as it is a lot less to write when I am pre-making the headers. So, like I have been doing, I drew the lines around the two boxes for the sections, giving a good amount of space between for the other header that will go there. Now, it was to add the tape along the spine. This time I went and only used my black washi tape, as I was not wanting to have some of the shimmery tape not reflected on the next page. You will see what I mean when I get there. At this point, it was time to start the distress ink process again. Here I needed a few extra sticky notes for coverage, as there were two areas to protect this time. Once all the sticky notes were on, I went and gave that galaxy style color theme around the borders again. Lastly, I added the two headers I had for this page. On the top, I put the header for my goals section, which was self-explanatory, and on the bottom, I put in the header for my things section, which is going to be used the exact same way a brainstorm section was. For my weekly logs, I am somewhat keeping the style similar to how I had last month set up, but with borders this time. The first thing I did was use the black washi tape along the center of the spine. Now I added in the lines. I had them roughly sketched in where I wanted them, which made it easier to do so that the boxes would be spaced out evenly and equally. The longest process was next, covering the area I did not want colored with my distressed inks with sticky notes. By this point, I kind of knew the pattern of the colors and where I wanted them to go so that my borders would look similar but not identical. After I was done with the border, I went and added dividing lines between the daily sections of the weekly log using a Tombow. I wanted to use more black ink in the spread, which is honestly why I used it in between the sections here. I pre-made some little numbered labels for each day of the month using the black paper I have. These were simple little boxes that I had to stick onto each section. This was one of the other longest things that I had to do. After I was done with the first page of my weekly log, I went through and did the rest of the month in the same order as I just mentioned. I did want to explain why I call my weekly logs, even though they do not look like the standard week a good amount of the time. I have tried in the past to daily log, where each day would be done that day, but it did not work for me, and I realized that I needed to have the whole week ready, or else I wouldn't use it. I use my modified version of weekly logs for one of two reasons. One, I started the layout very late, and an odd amount of days are already gone in the month, and I don't want to add them in. Or 2, I have a certain amount of pages available and I don't want 1 month in its own journal. Also, since September started on a Friday this year, I didn't want the first week to be a mostly blank page with only 2 days on it. So even though they are not a conventional weekly log, I use them the same way as a weekly log, even if a week isn't all on the same 2-page section. The final area I worked on was my reflection section. I did not have much of an idea of what I was going to do until I started working on it. I started out with drawing the lines and dividing the page into 4 equal sections. I figured I would do roughly the same sections as I did in August. Next, I added the black washi tape along the spine to match the final weekly log. And for the last time was the entire distress ink process. I was ready to be done using the inks for the day, so I did the same steps as I have done many times before, just one last time. The final thing I did was the labels. I added in the header that was on the black paper like all of the other headers. This time, I did label the 4 sections as well. I used one of my Micron pens and a couple of my new Ohuhu dot markers to give a little color to each section. In all, I really liked how this setup went. So, thank you for watching, and until next time, I am Umbrenero. Bye!